Ladies and gentlemen, Red Fox.
Here's a guy came in a nightclub. It wasn't a nightclub, it was a bar. He had about 14 or 20 drinks. He got half drunk. He said, if the furniture business don't get no better, I'm going to lose my ass. Bartender leaned over and said, look, Betty, this is a respectable place. So you don't use that language in here. We have ladies sitting around the bar and at the tables having a few cocktails. Don't say that in here. So a little while passed by. He had 3 or 4 more drinks. He said, if the furniture business don't get no better, I'm going to lose my ass. Bartender walked around and grabbed him and walked him outside. And the chick jumped up from the bar and said, why are you putting him out? His business is almost like mine. She said, if the ass business don't get no better, I'm going to lose my furniture. It's true. While I'm speaking about housewives, I hadn't even spoke about them, but I just bring it up. You know what I mean? Because that's what's next. No, but there was a housewife went down here, right off Crenshaw. And she went in and meet when they had the groceries in the supermarket, and she got 3 nice tomatoes. And she walked over to the butcher and said, that'll be 75 cents. She said, well, I'll go over here to the vegetable counter. She walked over there. She said, how much these tomatoes? The guy over there tell me 3 tomatoes cost 75 cents. Must be wrong, something wrong with his scale. He said, no, madam, they're 75 cents. She said, oh, hell, you got to be putting me on 75 cents for 3 tomatoes? She said, well, you know what you can do with them tomatoes. He said, I sure wish I could, but I can't. I got a 95-cent cucumber working.
All right.
See, they tell dirty stories. Not dirty stories, racial stories about different people they do. I hear stories all the time about us. And say we trying to make us look dumb. Say, how do 5 black people make popcorn? And one holds the pot while 4 of them shake the stove. I mean, stuff like that. That causes separation in the races, you know what I mean? So I know some white stories I could tell, but I don't want to hurt my family. What do you mean? You don't know what I am. I'm some of this and some of that. You can see I ain't pure, but hell, it's better than being left on a picnic in a Kleenex. Or in a drive-in movie in a popcorn napkin. What a way to die, drowned in butter. There's a guy who worked in the office building. He came out the restroom. He had a key. Most of them don't have no key. He had the key, and he would walk back into his office, and the secretary said, your front door is open. He looked all around. Hell, you know what you're talking about. Your front door is open. So he backed up, and she said, your front door is open. So he said, oh. He said, when you saw it, did you see that West Pointer standing there at attention? She said, hell no, I saw a disabled veteran sitting on 2 duffel bags. There's 2 bums stopped by a farmhouse, and they were looking for a handout, and the old lady was there. She said, well, I know you fellas in sort of bad shape. She said, I'll tell you what to do. I'll give you a good meal if you cut that cord of wood over there. So they started cutting the wood, and the old lady went back inside the house. About 20 minutes later, she looked out the window, and one of them bums was turning cartwheels and handsprings, no hand flips and splits. And she ran out, and she asked, she said, look, I didn't know your friend here was an acrobat. He said, I didn't either until I hit him in his, with this hatchet. So there was a cat in the drive-in with a chick, and they were watching the movie, and all of a sudden the car next to him started shaking and moving and shaking, and the girl looked over and said, what are they doing over there? The fellow said, they're making sandwiches. He looked over on the right-hand side of him, and the car was moving, and the back seat was jumping, and they was grooving on it. And the girl said, my goodness, look over there. He said, what are they doing over there? He said, making sandwiches over there, too. She said, well, why don't we make a few sandwiches? So they started making sandwiches in the back seat. And they got home, and the dad was up because they got in a little late. He said, where the hell y'all been? She said, Daddy, don't get angry. We were just at the drive-in making sandwiches. He said, well, I guess that's mayonnaise running down your leg then. Don't look at me. Somebody got to tell him. Here's how I want to say this. If miniskirts don't do nothing else, they sure giving some chicks a good errand. Say his old cat loved adventure, and he set out for Alaska, driving. He drove 3 days and 3 nights to get to Alaska. That's where he wanted to go. The biggest state in the United States. He got to the border. He was just talking to one of the guards. He said, look, what do you have to do to become a citizen up here, where people really respect you, where you love up here? The guy said, well, the first thing you got to do is drink a gallon of 151 proof rum, and don't bat your eye. This guy said, okay, then. He said, where you get that from? He said, it's around here. He said, what's the second thing you got to do? He said, you got to kill a polar bear. And the third thing you got to do is make love to an Eskimo broad. First guy said, well, give me that liquor first. So he got that liquor, and he got a whole gallon. He drank it down, didn't bat an eyelash. He was tore up, and he left. Pretty soon he came back. He said, well, where can I get this polar bear? The fellow said, you go up here. It's a polar bear about a half a mile up this way, lives in a cave. Go on in there. That's where he is. So he went on up there to where the polar bear was, and he came back. His clothes were torn off of him. He had scratches. He was bleeding. His hair was matted. He said, damn, that was tough. He said, now, show me this Eskimo broad you want me to kill. Say, this is a big, strong country boy, you know what I mean? He was big, strong sucker, you know, he worked hard in the mule. He was built good, and he was making love to his girlfriend, and he was really taking care of business. And she said, now, honey, be careful, you know, I have this weak heart. He said, don't worry, honey. I'll be careful as I slide by it. He's a drunk, you know, he just got in town, and he asked his buddy, he said, look, where can I find one of them houses? You know, one of them houses, ill repute? And his buddy said, look, I'll write it now. Here's the number. He gave him the number. He said, now, you go there, and everything will be groovy for you. This guy took the number, but somehow, in going to the place, he got the number backwards. He got in the wrong house. When he opened the door and walked in, this lady was bending over the stove cooking. He ran up behind her and threw her on the ground and made passionate love to her. And the husband heard all this noise and ran upstairs, heard all this noise, and he whipped this kid over. He said, man, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. You sure don't know how to run a whole house. Yeah, people talk a lot different in different parts of the country. I was in Atlanta, Georgia just here recently. Now, I was there but 8 days, but here's some of the things that I picked up. Now, foe, F-O, that means less than 5. See, ho, H-O, that's a bad girl. And po, P-O, that's poverty-struck. Po. And so, that's like when you get your head whipped. You get so. And woe, that's like when your shoes is wore out. And flow, F-L-O, flow, that's what you stand on. And cho, that's when you got a job to do. You got to do that cho, C-H-O. And roll, R-O, that's the sound a lion makes. Roll, roll, lion. And O, that's the edge of a lake. And smo, that's like another helping. Give me smo. Here's another proverb from the lips of one of the great people that were in the world years ago, Omar Chung. If you get Omar Chung, it was some cat named Omar Chung. You don't know him. It was a cat named Rufus Wilson that wrote one of the great pieces of poetry that we had in school. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to get her poor, hungry, starving dog a bone. And when she got there, the cupboard was bare, and the poor, hungry, starving dog bit her in the ass. They don't write like that no more. I was laying in bed one night. I was trying to get some FM on the stereo. FM was stolen from Negroes, and they switched the initials. But you know that belongs to us. If you don't believe it, make one of us mad. See, don't you be one of them first. Who's that laugh like that? I heard that sound in a motel one night. Then, he was a guy out to the cemetery, white fella, and he was watching this Chinese guy putting a whole lot of food on his friend's grave. So the white fella looked at the Chinese guy and said, when do you expect your friend to come up and eat all that food? The Chinese fella said, same time your friend come up and smell them flowers. Don't underestimate the people. And friends, with all the Chinese in the world, 800 million of them, you better try egg foo young in the morning. Just try to get, just in case. So they, no kidding, they can build a human bridge over here. And they don't care about dying like a lot of y'all do. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Isn't that dumb? Old lady told me, you ought to be ashamed talking about the handicap. You're not going to heaven. I said, you want to go back, walk out there in front of one of them big trucks, you'll be there for 6:30 in the morning. I ain't ready to go nowhere myself. I do like all the rest of old folks. Wait till you get old and get ready to give it up. Then straighten up. Suck a party till they get 90 years old. And he says, oh, Lord, why you do that? Up your old bucket, you mother. Here's a story. I know you're not going to laugh at it, but I'm going to tell it anyhow. I don't give a damn. There's a millionaire went to the movie because there was a good picture playing, so the place was crowded. And he just didn't make it inside, so he walked over to one of the ushers. He said, listen, if you can get me up front. He said, you know me, a big name millionaire. He said, you know me, and I know you. He said, if you get me a seat up front, I'll give you a substantial tip. So the guy maneuvered, and he went down front and checked, and finally came back, got the millionaire, and brought him down to a nice front seat. He said, I'm glad you got me a good seat, because this is the only way I can enjoy a movie is sitting up close, especially one of these mystery stories. So he tipped the usher. He handed him $1 dime. And the usher looked at him. And he leaned down and whispered in the millionaire's ear, the butler did it. But I'm a veteran myself. Hero in World War II. I didn't want to mention it, but I was a hero. The examination is worse than the fighting. No kidding, the doctor walked over to me and leaned down. I thought he dropped his pen, but he didn't. He grabbed me. Know what I mean, fellas? He grabbed me and said, cough. I said, cough? I can't even breathe. He had a grip like Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle. In fact, I think he was a ball player. Was a queer walking down the street, had a midget tucked on his arm, and he ran into another queer. He said, look, would you like a drag off of this before I throw it away? There's a guy who was walking down the street, and two guys dragged him in the alley, and they beat him so bad, they mugged him, had him around the throat, and just whipped him bad. And this guy fought back. He fought and knocked two of them down. He got back up, and they knocked him down, choked him some more, stepped on him, kicked him, and then finally they took his money, 67 cents. He said, man, you fought this hard for 67 cents. He said, no, I thought y'all left that $500 in my shoe. Guy went to a party New Year's Eve, and he got drunk. He put the lampshade on his head. He blew the whistle. He dumped food in people's laps, spilled drinks. And the next morning, he asked his wife, he said, did I make a fool out of myself, dear? She said, did you make a fool out of yourself? She said, you cussed your boss out He said, "I'll screw him." She said, "I did. You go back to work Monday." Kid ran in the house and said, "Mother, I'm 14 now and I want a brassiere." His mother said, "Shut up, Ralph." I saw her snatch her suitcase from the closet. I held her but a moment in the rain. I kissed her as she started for the depot to see her brother jack off the train. Lady went in the hardware store. She said, "Pardon me, sir, I'm building some things at home and I want to know if you have brass nuts." He said, "No, miss, I just walk like this." Real heartwarming round of applause. That's right. We don't know tonight is one of the highlights of your life. You're going to thrill tonight because I'm good. That's right. I swear to God and 3 other white men, I'm good. I don't get too big a break in show business because I talk about sex and being Negro. You're not supposed to talk about sex, but hell, Negroes have sex. Did nobody draw us? I'd like to plug a song I've just composed. A lot of you don't know probably that I'm a songwriter. I've had quite a few hits. This latest one I think will be a big one. It's called "If You Were the Only Girl in the World, You Could Name Your Own Price." Maybe that'll do good around Cicero. The definition of the word indecent. This is the educational portion of my show. And you can finish college, sir? Not yet. You've been dropped out a long time, you know. Only one thing kept me out of college: high school. You start spelling those tough words like posse. I missed it, but I was close. The definition of indecent: when it's in long and it's in hard and it's in deep, then it's indecent. Now you feel better, don't you, dear? Sure you do. We don't do racial stories, but here's a toast to the German bride. Gesundheit. I have some other stuff, Japanese, Puerto Rican, Filipino coming up. I mention everyone while I'm working. It seems that the Lord was making, when he was making the world, he called man aside and he said, "Look, I'm going to give you 20 years of sex life." And man was horrified because he didn't think that was enough. I said, but the Creator, he didn't budge. Then he called on the monkey and gave the monkey 20 years. The monkey said, "I don't need 20 years. So man said, "Well, give me those other 10. The Lord said, "All right then." Then the Lord called on the lion, gave him 20 years. The lion said, "Well, I don't need 20, just give me 10. So man said, "Well, give me them other 10, Lord." The Lord said, "Well, okay then, you can have them." And then the Lord called on the donkey, gave him 20 years like he gave the rest of them. The donkey said, "Well, just give me 10. That'll be sufficient for me, Lord. I couldn't stand no more than 10. So man said, "Well, give me them other 10. I'll take them." Man felt good. And this explains why that for 20 years, man has a normal sex life. Then he has 10 years of monkeying around, 10 years of lying about it, and 10 years of making an ass of himself. That's what it is. Here was a guy who went to the doctor. He said, "Doc, look at here." Doc said, "You ever had that before?" He said, "Uh-huh." Doc said, "Well, you got it again." Another guy went to the doctor and said, "Doc, take a look at this." Doc said, "My goodness, man, where'd you get something like that?" He said, "I stick it in beans." Doc said, "What kind of beans?" He said, "Human beans." Teenagers have a new game. It's called Button, Button. Here comes my father. You'll excuse me from time to time, folks, if I don't look over this way too much because ugly folks here tonight. Look at everybody trying to look better. My wife belongs in a crowd like that. Whew, I had bad luck ever since I met her. If I fell in a barrel full of breasts, I'd come out sucking my thumb. That's pretty good, buddy. I was married in Texas. My wife was from Texas. Her brother, a great big fellow, always bragged about how great Texas was. He died about 2 years ago. He was 6'9", weighed 347 pounds. They couldn't even find a coffin big enough to bury him in, so he just gave him an enema and buried him in a shoebox. That's it, darling. You just laugh right out. That's why you hear. Some of you might, feel as though you don't like me maybe already. Well, if you don't like me already, you know that. Ain't no safety belt on your seat. Do like the shepherd did. Get the flock out. This is going to be fun. There was a couple of scientists on Mars, and they were getting a whole lot of things. They were bringing them back to Earth. And one Martian asked him, he said, look, how do you have babies? And the guy is from America. The American scientist said, well, how do you have babies up here? So we'll show you. And they brought out a beautiful Martian girl with a lot of tentacles hanging down. And they grabbed them together and wrapped their tentacles around each other. And pretty soon her back opened up and a baby came out. Same size and same look, just a baby. Plenty of tentacles. So the Martian said, now I've showed you, show us how you have kids on Earth. So the scientists sort of reluctant, sort of bashful. So they finally called a pretty girl that just won Miss America contest, a runner-up. She was in the science program. They laid down on the floor. He got up and freshened up, and Martian said, my goodness, where's the baby? The scientist said, well, we don't have the baby for 9 months if we're lucky. He said, well, why were you hurrying so fast at the end? I thought that was a good one. And one of those new rocket ships, the whole 300 or 400 people, you know what I mean? Not it was like a plane, rocket plane, and had 300 or 400 people aboard. It was the first test flight, and they were going, took off from the runway, eased into the wild blue yonder. Everybody settled down. Automatic intercom turned on and said, you're now aboard one of our first automatic plane flights from San Francisco to Rome. This is a magnificent plane. You just noticed we eased off the runway. And ladies and gentlemen, there's no crew on this ship, but there's nothing to worry about. We're flying at 3,000 feet, and we're climbing. Everything has been tested, and there's no chance of anything going wrong. Going wrong. Going wrong. Going wrong. Going wrong. That's a nice clean one for television. There's a sign in the cat house window. Said, out to lunch, beat it. Don't you like them little quickies? Then you had to fool around, you know what I mean? And chick was at a bar, and she was telling her friend who was sitting there with her, she said, I don't want to get tight. So her friend, sitting there, he looked over at her. She said, well, she said, I don't want to get tight. And she got up and went to the ladies' room while she was going. The bartender leaned over the fella. He said, listen, she may get drunk, but she ain't going to never get tight. In life. I like drunk stories. It was two drunks sitting on the curb, and one of them had his finger in the other one's rear. No, I had his finger in his other, and the cop walked up and said, what are you doing? He said, my buddy's sick, and I want him to throw up. He said, well, hell, I ain't no way to make him throw up. He said, well, you wait till I switch his finger to his mouth. That's right. The father received a letter from his son's college. He had to send his kid away to school to make nice money, And the president of the college had asked the father to please come so he could talk to him about his son's behavior. And the father arrived at school about 3 or 4 days later. The president said, I have bad news and good news. He said, the bad news is after being here 2 years, we've discovered that your son is a homosexual. Now, the good news is your son has been selected as queen of the May. I always like to do a few stories about those fellas because a lot of things happen in bars. A lot of fellas come here, and you don't know football players that are queer. You can smack them off field. And they cry, you know what I mean? Shucks. But chicks, too. It was a pretty chick sitting at the bar, and nobody could seem to move her. I mean, the bartender tried, a couple of waiters tried, a couple of cats sitting around the bar tried to get her to make a move. Nothing. And the cat walked in, strange cat, funny-looking cat, too. He leaned over. She got up, and they both split. A couple of cats sitting at the bar leaned over the bartender and said, hey, man, what happened? We've been trying to hit on this chick, and this cat leaned right over, whispered to her, or said something, and she gets some leaves with him. He said, well, he didn't say nothing. All he did was lick his eyebrows. Did you hear me, dear? All he did was lick his eyebrows. Where you from? Holy Mary of Trinity? Sit there and look like I killed Lincoln or somebody. I wish he could have made it, personally, and we wouldn't be going through all this stuff. Damn it. If Lincoln's wife had not bugged him, he told her on his deathbed, God damn it, I told you I didn't want to see that show. Little boy asked his daddy, he said, Daddy, what's a queer? Daddy ignored him. He said, Daddy, what's a queer? Daddy said, shut up and unhook my bra. No, it's a lot of straddlers. Two queers met on Sunset Boulevard up there in front of Ciro's. One of them said, honey, I just left the doctor's office. I just had my tonsils, my adenoids, my teeth removed. The other queer said, what? Honey, you mean to tell me you had a whole hysterectomy? He said, Jesus, look at him and said, hey, you think my act is dirty? Look who he called on. And it was two sisters, they were drunk, and they were sitting at the bar, and one of them said, hey, we've been here long enough, let's blow this joint. The other one said, okay, you take the women. And these are just short cuties now. You have to get chopped. We'll drink another toast. What's the difference between a goldfish and a mountain goat? A goldfish like to muck around the fountain.
All right.
I said, okay then. And the doctor was giving this girl a checkup, and he was feeling her all over and everything, looking for lumps, you know what I mean, and signs of cancer. And he had he was squeezing her, and then he started probing, and he said, I think I'm going to need a sample of urine. She said, if you keep doing what you're doing, I'm going to need a sample of urine. It was a cop, and he wanted his buddies to know how good he was at getting chicks. And so he said, all right, I tell you what, you know that chick's so hard to get? He said, look, I'll take her out tonight, and you listen on my transmitter, and you can hear what goes on. So he picked this waitress up, and he picked the hamburger up, and they both got in the car and drove off into the woods. And his transmitter was on, and he said, give it to me. But his buddies didn't know he was in the car, and he just wanted that hamburger. So she handed it to him, and when she reached to hand it to him, it dropped on the floor. She said, are you going to eat that? He said, say hamburger, say hamburger. Hey, listen. Oh, let me tell this. Here's a guy had a wooden eye. This guy had a wooden eye. He could never keep a girlfriend because invariably, when they'd have any kind of disagreement, they'd make reference to his wooden eye, and they'd fall out. You know what I mean? Finally, he met a girl whose mouth was cut different than most folks. Instead of going across like this, her mouth was cut straight up and down from the nose to the chin. You know, right straight down the center. And they fell in love because with obvious flaws, they just fell in love. And time went on, and he loved her so much he wanted to marry her. And one night, the time was right. And he asked her, he said, honey, would you marry me? She said, wouldn't I? He said, pussy face. Then, you'd be surprised how many stories there are about eyes. It was a guy who was eating some soup in a restaurant, and his glass eye fell into his bowl, and he mistook it for a large green pea and swallowed it. And he didn't want the doctor to know that he was so stupid he would eat his own glass eye, so he didn't mention it when he went to the doctor's office to get this eye out. He said, well, Doc, I have a little congestion in my tract. He said, see what you can do, Doc. So get up on the table and kneel on all four. So the doctor walked around the back of him, and when the doctor looked up, there was his eye. Doc looked and said, now, look, the first thing you got to do is trust me. It's another eye story. It's a guy walked in the bar, tried to buy some liquor, and the bartender said, you can't drink in here, you're drunk. He said, what do you mean I'm drunk? If I'm drunk, how could I see that one-eyed cat coming in the door? Bartender said, that cat's leaving. And the little girl said, Mother, what's a lesbian? Her mother said, ask your father, she'll tell you. There's a guy, a lifeguard in one of those expensive hotels, and he asked one of the male guests to be nice enough not to wet in the pool. You know what I mean? Just be a nice guy. I said, man, you know yourself. Everybody in here wets in the pool. He said, from the diving board. Here's a notice from Civil Defense in case you didn't receive your brochure in the mail last week for the citizens of California. In case of a nuclear attack, you crawl under a heavy desk, draw your knees up to your ears, bend your head between your legs, take a deep breath, and kiss your ass goodbye. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to throw this away. I'm cut this away. This is for all the folks here that are familiar with golf. Yeah, it was Moses and St. Peter. Oh. And Jesus. They were all out on the golf course together. And Moses walked up to the tee, laid his ball down, and this hole was a 440-yard par. 440 yards with a full par. And St. Peter swung, and the ball went straight in the air like a dove's tail. 440 yards, dropped on the green and dribbled right in the pocket. And then Moses stepped up to the tee and teed off. The ball sailed, dovetailed. Little wind off to the right, back into the left, down 2 inches from the cup and rose slowly into the cup. And then the Lord walked up. He teed off. Bam! The ball went over into the rough, hit 12 trees, jumped off 3 bushes, down 6 valleys, across the river, over into the green, down into the cup. St. Peter walked up to the Lord and said, look, baby, none of them old miracles, let's play golf. Well, I guess we get started on this new thing. I need as much cooperation as possible because I have to be on a paying job that pays tonight in the next hour and a half. So I won't be here that long because I know y'all want to eat. A lot of y'all want to eat, and some of y'all want some food. I just want to tell you about this guy who came in Chazville a couple of nights ago. You know where I'm working. It's not Hollywood, but it's right on the edge of Hollywood. And if anything happened, I'll be right in it. But a guy came in Jazzville the other night. He got fresh with one of the waitresses. Of course, she looked good. And he sauntered over to her and got a cigarette, and he flicked his ashes off like one of them old-time gigolos. He said, "Hey, baby, ain't I seen you somewhere before?" She said, "Damn right, I've been there." See, that's what you have to have, an answer in your mouth at all times. Because you beautiful girls gonna get hit on. See, when I was just a young kid, my mother paid a woman to wheel me around. Really, that's a fact. And I've been pushed for money ever since. So, you know, a guy was driving down Route 66, and he stopped in a little restaurant late one evening for a cup of coffee. He said, "Hey, waitress, would you bring me a cup of coffee with no cream?" And the waitress left, and she came back in about 3 minutes. She said, she looked all in the kitchen. She said, "I'm very sorry, sir, but we don't have no cream. Would you like it without milk?" Too clean? Well, back to the gut. While I was in the same cafe, and the lady, she sat out next to me, and she was kind of old fussy old lady. She said, I know you got chicken salad on the menu. And the waitress said, "Yes, we do have." She said, "Is it all chicken?" The waitress said, "Well, not exactly. It's not all chicken." She said, "It's like 50-50. Old lady said, "What do you mean 50-50? She said, "Got veal in it?" The waitress said, "Yes, we have a little veal in it. That's why it's 50-50. She said, "Well, how much?" She said, "1 chicken and 1 calf." So she said, "Well, never mind. Just bring me a ham sandwich." Waitress said, "With pleasure." Old lady said, "No, with mustard." Well, let's talk about a minute about drivers, men and women. Now, my wife drives like lightning. Every time she come home, she said, "Fox, I just hit a tree." Turn over this way. But I read in the paper where a fellow in New York, a man in New York is run over like every half hour. Now, don't you feel sorry for him? One guy run over that many times. And in California, this is the worst state in the union. Like in California here, a pedestrian walks around like they own the street. And the drivers, they drive around like they own their car. Don't hold it there. Just laugh like you're eating chitlins. Yeah, and if you can eat a chitlin, you got something to laugh about.